Hello and welcome to the Project 7890. This is my 2019 KTM 790 Adventure. It has been modified quite extensively, and in this series of episodes I'm taking you through all of those modifications, and hopefully then it can help you make a decision for your 790 or 890 that you maybe just bought or have had for a while. This bike has also had an engine swap. There is an 890 Duke R engine fitted to this. If you haven't seen that series, I suggest that you then click on the card in this corner, and that'll take you to a 6-episode series where we explain everything we've done to the bike and why we did it, and also how much it cost. This series has a separate playlist. If you click again in this corner, it'll take you back to episode 1, where you can watch the last couple of episodes, and it'll take you through controls, protection, and on today's episode, we're looking at ergonomics and electronics. See what I did there? Okay, folks, so we're just talking about start with the electronics. Probably the best way to really do is actually probably start to talk about what I've got done to the front of the bike. The bike is basically standard at the front with regard to electronics. The Denelli lights that I do have are the S4 pods. These are a really good supplementary light if you need to light up the road a wee little bit. I prefer to have them on for basically safety, believe it or not. I don't really ride much at night, but when I do, these are superb, but they're more for attention grabbing when I'm out driving in traffic. I have had someone drive out in front of me and it wasn't a pleasant experience, but thankfully with these that seems to have reduced lately. Either that or I'm just being a lot more aware and cautious about when people are approaching. So electronics wise, that's the first thing. This is all linked into the CAN bus system, which I'll go through shortly. Obviously with KTMs, you get a lot of electronics standard as anything. This bike has got, I think it's what's known as the Tech Pack kit on it. When I bought it initially, I only bought the quick shifter electronics. But since then I've had cruise control, which wasn't standard switchgear wise back in the day. And I've had rally mode enabled and all. So that basically I've had the full tech pack. I know people think this is a subscription service or whatever, but it is just a one-off payment. It's always been the same. It's just the way KTM marketing packaged it recently. They give you a demo mode for, I think it's about 1,000 miles, 1,500 kilometers, and then you have to make a purchase, or you just option it in at the very start and you don't have to worry about the demo day. But basically it's a dealer fitted option, and it's a wee bit of extra money for the dealer, a bit of an upsell. Yeah, I think it's about £1,000 UK or a bit less than that. But I'm sure if you've got a good enough dealer, you can do a deal on that. Coming back from the main, obviously KTM electronics, you do have a Garmin sat-nav. I run the XT. It's been out a few years now. It seems to do well. It shows tracks, so it's excellent for running the TET. And I do run additional maps on it, which take a wee bit of a while to come up. But I am basically running Talkie Toaster maps, and they work really well with the contours and the extra detail. So that's kind of what I run, and TET tracks just go straight onto it, or GPX files you can upload really easily through your phone. So that is the main front end of the bike. You'll also notice I don't run a lot of cables showing, so everything's kind of tucked in behind. You know, it's fitted in the places where KTM designed it to go in, and it's all hidden within the lights. I don't really like lots of wires at the front of a bike. Sometimes I see people, it gets really messy. I think my OCD gets triggered then. The only other electronics really I've got the front are an additional USB charger, which I spoke about in the controls. It's a single USB-C, or USB-A, sorry, I think it is, isn't it? What they call those, which basically runs my phone charger, and that's really all I have electronics-wise. If I need to run anything else off it, it goes into the tank bag. Other things in this area, obviously you've got heated grips, sort of standard KTM stuff. This is prior to them being incorporated into the head unit, into the TFT display where the control comes up on a particular page. I'm not really convinced about that because there's another module involved underneath the tank. This is kind of quick and dirty. Expensive to replace though, because I've smashed a few of them. And the grips seem to last okay. That one's 5 years old, 35,000 miles on it. Throttle's okay. I do have a new fresh set to go on at some stage next year when they wear out. I'm coming back from there, obviously tank, and then we get towards the heart of the vehicle when it comes to electrics, obviously the battery. But before we get there, this is the Denelli CanSmart, which is basically the HexCan system. I think it's all made by HexCan. Lots of people are making these now. But basically you can see there's an LED light on there. If you can see the green light. So it's basically connected to the battery, and it runs the sat nav, it runs the front lights, it runs the auxiliary power to the USB here, and it does have a spare socket which I can run extra electrics off. So it does have the ability to chop and change. You can control this by a computer. You can plug in your computer here, and you can set it up fuse size, so you can make it a 5 amp, 10 amp, etc. for each accessory, so it's protected in that respect. And if it does go pop, turn the bike off, turn it back on, it should work. But obviously you need to find the fault first. Other things, obviously ODP is actually part of this, because this plugs in through the canvas. So this umbilical here is actually from the CanSmart, but it all plugs in, works well, and it tucks in nicely behind the tank. I've got it kind of fitted here because it just seemed to fit well. And it keeps it out. But in here it gets dusty as anything when you're riding off road anyway, so you do need to clean stuff pretty regularly. Underneath the tank, I've got a couple of relays for the horn. I do have a Smart Bomb horn, which is a big tooter. I do like to have a big horn. Basically, it's just to make people aware when they drive out in front of me that I am here and I can shout at them with a horn. So that's all fitted down where the canister delete was. So it's sort of at the front of the tank on the right hand side where the canister used to be. It all fits in there. The only thing is I seem to melt them quite a lot because they're quite close to the headers. But battery, lithium ion on this one. The standard one I still have. It still works fine, but just the weight of it, I thought the Noco NLP 14, I think is the model I use. Lithium ion battery, it weighs about, it's featherweight. When you, for anybody who hasn't lifted one up, go into a retailer and see if you can get your hands on one and just feel the weight difference between that and your standard battery. It was bought mainly as a preventative measure because I'd heard bad things about the factory batteries just suddenly dying and people having lots of electronic problems with lots of red lights, etc. on the dash. By the way, that's a nice warning because it is so cold in here, hence why I'm wearing hats and gloves and things. So I basically bought it as a preventative measure when I went on one of my first Spain-Portuguese trips, or Spanish-Portuguese trips, and it was designed so that, these things are hopefully pretty robust. The only thing I've heard bad about lithium-ion batteries is that when they're cold, you do need to switch on the battery and let it sort of run the electronics for 2 or 3 minutes to let it warm up. I've never had a problem with that with this battery, and it's been in, well, you can see now it's plus 3 degrees in here. It's -2 outside at the moment. So this is something which has been really, really, really good for me. Starts on the button every time, and I've not had a problem with it failing or anything on me, and no funny lights. As we come back, the electronics get less and less, obviously. That's the main bulk of it at the front. Obviously, we've got a charging dongle or whatever you want to call it there for the battery. It's got its own sort of independent charger, which it gets plugged into when it's parked. Rottweiler airbox, that goes without saying. I do run an alarm on this bike, basically because of the UK has a bit of a reputation for bikes going missing. It's purely just to make noise and scare whoever tries to take the bike. If they do, fortunately, I'm pretty savvy with hopefully where I keep it and things like that, touch wood. I'll not try and jinx anything, but it is just a deterrent. It's not there designed to stop people taking it. If they want it, they'll take it. Here is a standard SAE connector. So I have that on the ACC2 connections, which are here at the back on the 790 and the 890. So that is basically to run a compressor. So that just connects straight up, turn on the ignition, turn on the engine and run a compressor off it. So that's that. It just tucks down here in front of the power commander, so it keeps itself quite nice. The power commander, if you've watched the build series, you'll know that this bike was fitted with a power commander to go along with the Rottweiler airbox. This is all plumbed in correctly at the moment. It does have the ability to run 2 different maps, which are switched from a switch on the right hand side beside the throttle. At the moment, there are no maps on this at all. It's just running default zeros all throughout the rev range. That's something to do in the future. And then that really brings us to the back, where it's basically standard electronics. And that's really it from an electronics point of view. I don't need a bike with lots of bells and whistles and cameras and extra bits and bobs, especially with the right type of riding I like to do. It's basically just need a nav to get me to the place. There's people running big tablets now, DMD2 and things like that. That's maybe something I do in the future if I want to do some roadbook stuff. But otherwise, all the electronics are basically standard KTM, a couple of plugs, sat nav, and some lights and a horn. That's really it. Everything else is just kept nice and simple. And it's best that way because nothing's, touch wood, has gone wrong yet. Okay, it's covered the electronics. We've got the seat back on. The seat may not be fitted correctly because there's a bit of a gap there. But basically on the 790 standard, it comes with a two-piece seat. Because I'm such a short arse, not very tall and all that, I did have the seat shaved a little bit when I first bought the bike with a gel pad fitted to it. So that was done by Tom Hurley Seats, custom seats up in Livingston direction. Really comfy seat, but I desired a one-piece seat. The standard R seat's a little bit higher, and this is the factory low seat. So as you can see, it's nice and low, just where you need it to be, and that suits me fine. I've been running this seat now for probably 3 years. 3-4 years maybe actually, and it's done the job. I do sometimes run a cool cover on it, which is the mesh, which helps a lot when it's raining because it takes the water away, because the water does pull here in your crotch whenever you're riding. But if you've got the cool cover on, the rain runs through it and runs off the bike, and also when it's really hot, you get a bit of airflow under your backside. So that's what I use on that. So that's the seat part of it taken care of. Handlebar wise, I'm quite fussy about handlebars. I always run my handlebars with the bend sort of parallel to the fork, and that's the way I've always done it. If it's even a millimetre out or a millimetre forward, I notice it, and it makes the bike feel funny to me. Speaking of setup of the bars, I'll run the Vanache, as you can get the camera in here, the Vanache damper mount, which has 2 positions on it instead of the 3 positions on the factory crown. Mainly being because that rear position is used to bolt that mount to the actual crown itself. So I run it in the middle mount, or the rear mount on the Vanache thing. I did have it on the closest to mount whenever I didn't have this damper fitted, and when I moved it forward, it felt a lot better. So I was quite happy with that. Bars wise, mainly lever preferences. That's all up to you. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but if you're interested in how I do it, because this bike is used as basically a road tour to get to trails, it's probably ridden on the road 80% of the time, and this is basically just designed for I'm comfortable on the road and can get to the brakes. If I wanted to, I can put them forward a little bit, but to be honest, I just set and forget, and they're very comfortable in that respect. When we come down to fork setup, I run the fork probably 5mm out of the top of the crowns. I think that's almost factory. We'll talk about suspension in another episode, but you can see there I do have cartridges fitted, so we can have a look at that in another episode, but we'll go through that. But basically that's what I run. I could run them lower to get the bike a little bit sort of front heavy and get a bit more grip in the front wheel, but there's not really much to play with because the bark buster here would foul the top cap, so I've just got to play it by ear. Obviously we've done the hands, the handlebars, the seat, now the feet for the ergos. Feet wise, I run Bosley pegs. You'll maybe have to Google them. He's been making sort of custom pegs for quite a few years now. These are stainless steel. They're standard size. They're just a wee bit longer. This was are wider, I should say, and wider that way than the standard KTM peg. But they aren't lowered, aren't raised, so I just kept them standard reach. And they work really, really well. Plenty of grip, really strong. You can see how well they're quite robustly constructed. I've hit them off many rocks and they've been dropped on several times. You just get a bit of Scotch-Brite out on it. Scotch-Brite fixes everything, KTM, as you know, and that sorts them out. But really, really good job. And in fact, they've eaten away one of the soles on one of my old boots so much I've had to buy new boots recently. Going from here to here, brake lever wise, Vanache 790 brake lever. Basically, it's designed so it's level. I like to be able to ride on my toes and then just dab the foot brake like that. So it's in the rear position. I've got size 6 feet. It is adjustable one. You can move it forward one hole. So basically that rear hole comes there. Really good wee foot stand, and actually quite wide when you look at it compared to the standard one, which is probably about that size. So that just gives you an idea of that. And I also run it almost on the stop. So it's right up. So it's basically level with my foot peg. So it's dead on when you're riding off-road. You just dab it. And then when you're riding on-road, you can just move your foot forward and tap it. So that's how I set that up. The other side may be a little bit trickier because of the stand, but I'll try and show you as best I can. This is the Vanache gear lever. This is pretty new out, so I thought I would get one. However, it's designed for lower pegs, so just be cautious if you do decide to get one. I tend to run, again, my pedals and my lever level, but this one is actually probably a little bit lower because I thought it was maybe impacting the gear. So I still got to play about with this. You'll have heard me mention some of the quick shifter things in the 890 build series. The quick shifter probably needs recalibrated, but that's still work to do. But at the moment, the temperatures are not letting me get out in the bike and play with it or adjust it. So that's something for a later date. But that basically brings the ergonomics to the end. I'm hoping some of that was actually quite helpful to you. If you have some suggestions that you think that might help me, being a short rider, let me know. I don't think I need bar risers. That's probably the last thing I need. I don't think I need lowered pegs. That's the last thing I probably need. But if you've got any tips that you think that a short arse like myself might be able to use, then let me know. Okay, guys, thanks for tuning in. We've just gone through some of the ergonomics and the electronics I run on my bike. Some of that may be able to help you decide what you want to do. With a bike like this, I've tried to keep it as minimal as possible. I don't want to chuck a load of extra stuff on it that you may see on other bikes. It's dead basic. It just gets you to the trails and you can navigate on the trails. That's basically the end of it. Setting up wise, obviously, is a very, very individual preference. You will set up your bike completely different to the next man. I'm no different. All I'm doing is showing you what I've done. I'm a smaller rider, which is difficult at times because these bikes don't come in small, medium or large. This basically, you've got to make them fit you. So some of the tweaks I've done have all been to do with that. They've also been to do with the fact that where I'm taking the bike, I want to be able to do certain things and also, for example, maybe charge something in the tank bag while I'm riding along, but still be able to use my phone, etc. So a few things like that. I'm not really into like wireless stuff or anything like that because I think sometimes that can cause you more problems, and also it tends to be item specific. Ergonomics wise, it's all been stuff about preventative, be it stronger pedals, brake and gear levers, things like that. So just stuff which you need to bear in mind if you're taking your bike off-road. In the next few episodes, I'm probably going to start talking about what luggage systems I use. Bike has had panniers fitted to it, pannier racks, which I found useful. Some trips not so useful for others, and I'll go through that in the next few episodes. I've also got to talk about suspension. This bike's had a suspension, obviously upgraded since I've got it from you, so I'll go through that and tell you why I've done it and how I've done it. But other than that, if you've liked this video and you've stuck to the end, thank you. Click a like, click subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next episode.